Morning guys, welcome to Midwest Whitetail. Today I'm back in this little poor man's plot that I started a couple weeks ago, and I sprayed it if you remember. And it looks like we got a pretty good kill. I'm just kind of looking around here, and this was a tough one because there's a lot of different stuff in here. There's a lot of different weeds and briars and even young trees, and I'm not seeing really anything that's looking green and healthy. Some of it's taking longer to die than others, but nevertheless it is dying. So today we're actually going to seed and fertilize this little half-acre spot up here. And one thing I was going to address quick too, I know when we aired this, got a lot of comments of using creek water to spray this. So what I basically did that day was I brought one full backpack sprayer tank from my house, sprayed the far half here behind me. Then we went back down the ridge to the creek, filled up with creek water, and sprayed the other half. And a lot of people commented saying that the creek water is gonna make the glyphosate not as effective. And I hadn't seen that personally. I've sprayed with river water and creek water before, and figured this would be a good test because I did half and half, and it doesn't look to affect it in this case. We'll show you a drone shot so you can see the two halves side by side. But the creek water that I pulled from was fairly clean, so maybe if it's a situation where there's a lot more sediment or something, I'm not sure. I just haven't seen that, but we got a lot of comments on that. So obviously it does happen in cases where the creek water does not work as effectively, but it doesn't seem to be the case here. Just thought I'd share that for knowledge and experience purposes. But like I said, we got a fairly good kill, and there's a lot of standing vegetation that's dying obviously, but if you look down in here, there's a lot of exposed soil, which is what we need for this kind of broadcast. But we're not working this at all. It's just a poor man's plot. So that exposed dirt and soil here is going to be key. So I'm going to broadcast that in, and then potentially, I haven't decided yet, I might see if I can find a log or something to drag over this, kind of mat this dead vegetation down on top of that seed. So we'll see how that goes. So I am switching up what I'm planting from what I originally had planned. Since it's getting a little bit later, I'm going to go with some oats, some rye. There are some winter peas in here, some faster growing brassicas, and a more leafy variety, and also some clover in here as well. The clover not going to provide much food at this point this fall, but it'll provide food going into next spring. And also hopefully this will be a long-term plot, so hopefully it'll kind of keep some of the weed competition down if we have clover coming back in here. So that's the plan for what we're planting in this plot. And anytime I do this, I like to overseed a little bit. This is about a half acre like I mentioned, but I'm probably going to put close to 3/4 of an acre of seed on this spot, because anytime you're just throwing seed out broadcasting, you're probably not going to get as high of a germination rate as you would on a nice tilled seed bed. So I'm going to go a little bit higher on the seeding rate here today. All right, we got this project wrapped up. Good little early morning workout. I'm gonna leave this vegetation standing. Some of it's just still dying, so it wouldn't really roll over very well anyways, but I'm gonna hope that we get rain. There is a chance of rain. We're really dry here in Iowa, but there's a chance of rain tomorrow. And even with the vegetation standing, it's still gonna do a good job of holding that moisture in the ground, as opposed to if we would have this whole area tilled up. So that's the advantage of leaving this vegetation in here. I really do think we're gonna get decent growth. It may not be the best looking food plot and perfectly even, but I do think we're gonna get some good growth and some food on this property, which like I said before, this is the only food besides natural browse. So it'll be a good little spot. I'm excited to see how it does. You know, poor man's plots, there's a wide variety of them. This one I wouldn't say is ideal just because of the type of vegetation that is in here, and the access to get here is a lot of work. But there's other ones that can be really easy too, and we're going to join Max and Grant now that are going to show you a couple different types. One that's maybe a little bit easier, and then one that's pretty similar to this. So I'll let those guys kind of share their process with the 4-man plots. They're hunting on permission as well, so it can be a really good way to get a little bit extra food or create a little bit better hunting spot if you can work with the landowner or the farmer, in the case of Max and Grant, to do something like this. I'm excited to see how this one does. There are a couple good bucks showing up on camera just on the other side here, so I'm excited to see. Hopefully they'll stick around and someone will be able to hunt this spot and have some good luck.
All right, well, it's late July here, and it's a super exciting day for Grant and I. You can see this plot behind me. It's about 1/3 of an acre. It might go toward 1/2 of an acre, but it's gonna be the perfect little kill setup for all these deer traveling north and south.
All right, guys, it was a good, productive day here on Max and I's permission farm. Got some cameras moved around, got this plot sprayed up. Our next step is we're gonna come in here and try to plant this plot.
Well, it's a hot one out here this afternoon, but Grant and I are back on our main permission farm right now, standing in what you can see is a first-year food plot. This farm is one that we've talked to you guys several times about. It's one that we gained permission on this past year, so we have one hunting season on it thus far. It's a little bit of a further drive, as we've said in the past. It's a little bit further drive from our house than we like. So going into our first year, we were hesitant to put forth a real ton of effort onto a farm that we really didn't know what kind of deer it would hold or how our hunts would progress throughout the season. But after a full hunting season on this farm, we have really been shocked and overall impressed with the quality of deer, as well as the amount of deer that kind of call this little area home, whether that be on us or just on some of our neighbors right here. So at the beginning of last year, you know, through our running of trail cameras and our preseason scouting and coming out a couple times to velvet film, we kind of, in our minds, had it set that we knew the natural direction of the deer movement being south on some of the big timbered neighbors, to the north where some of the more of the tillable ground sits, and luckily we were right about that. Almost every time that we hunted, although it wasn't very many times, the natural movement every single time was from south moving directly north. You'll notice through these drone shots that we'll show you that we do luckily have a little skinny timber draw that runs north and south on this farm, and we ran a couple of trail cameras over a couple scrapes in there, and even more deer than we had in this tillable field working north. We had a ton of deer running up that draw through this tiny little sliver running north to these big ag fields. So this year, after knowing what we know, we decided that it was time to come in and try to get a kill plot put in somewhere up tight next to this draw. And so this little waterway, or whatever you want to call it, kind of unused half acre of this big tillable field was the perfect spot to put this plot.
So yeah, as Max mentioned, this is a first-year plot for us in this location. And just like Jared, we actually didn't have any equipment to plant this plot. We actually came in here, sprayed it off. Once we got a good clean kill, came in here and burned it and seeded it with turnips, and came in here with some 19 to put on top of it. So we got a few good key rains after that, but since then it's been pretty dry. So as you can see, it's looking pretty dry, and there's quite a bit of grass in it. So what our plan is with this plot is, on the east side of it here, we're gonna put a stand up in the draw and blow a west wind. But what we're most confident about is we're gonna put a blind up on this dike on the west side. And that's gonna allow us to have great entry and exit routes. It's gonna allow us to blow an east wind as well as a south wind. So we're really excited about that location. So the main deer that we're looking to catch up with on this plot is a deer that we call Eddie. And he summers most of the time on the north side of this property, which is across the road. And eventually he works his way down here late September, early October. So we're hoping to catch him here. And then another deer we're looking forward to seeing is Davy Jones. And I think our first pictures of him were like early October last year. And personally, that's probably one of the biggest deer that I've ever gotten on camera. So we're really excited about him. And then another focus that we're gonna have this year is youth season. We have a great youth season buck picked out. He's a mature 8-pointer. And we think that this plot will be a perfect location to catch up with him. So we got a few things on the to-do list today for this farm. Max and I actually just got a brand new cutty link system that we're gonna deploy on the south side of the property. And then we're actually gonna go to the north side of the property and try to manicure another poor man's plot. It's a pretty nasty area. It's a lot of briar and tall brush. So Max actually came in here and sprayed it a couple weeks ago, and it's starting to die off a little bit, but we're gonna try to burn what we can today and then maybe try to spray it again so we can come in here with some kind of fall finish and finish it up. So we got a lot of things to knock out on this side of the property, and then we'll catch back up with you on the north side of the property on that new poor man's plot. All right, 2 down, 3 to go.
It's a hot one. Once you get that one, just roll it loose. This scrape ought to look pretty familiar, or at least it does for Grant and myself. There's a tree about 30 yards away that we were hanging in. This is actually the scrape that the buck I shot was hitting right before I killed him, so had to do another scrape here. But excited to have that cutty link system here for a little more intel than we had last year, not running anything cellular, so should be a huge advantage for us.
You ready? I'm ready. All right, well, this is where we got the first pictures of Davy Jones right here on this scrape, just cruising the south side of this creek right here. This is actually the last camera to deploy today, so we're gonna head to the north side of the property and check out that poor man's plot.
Well, we finally made it up to the north side of our farm. We got everything done we needed to on the south side, the cutty cell system deployed, mock scrapes made, so we're looking good. As you can see from what's behind me, this is some pretty rough stuff, but this is actually the location of our second poor man plot on this permission track of ours. This little spot I'm standing in, it totals about a ½ acre, hopefully, once we get everything taken care of. And it's almost in a figure 8 shape. It's tucked up perfectly, again, right up next to the corn, but then against what timber we do have on this farm. We're probably only 15 acres of huntable timber on this side of the farm here, but it is a pretty good little chunk with some good trails and really good couple of stand locations in there. So the main goal for the rest of the afternoon here is to get this plot kind of taken care of. I came in 2 weeks ago and sprayed it, hit it pretty hard, and some of the grasses and stuff are dead and the briar thicket stuff is starting to die, but I don't think I got a good enough kill, so we did bring in stuff to spray again. But first, before that, we're gonna try to burn whatever will burn. We're gonna try it. That way, hopefully that takes out some of the undergrowth, as well as lets us get a better kill on what's left. So ideally, I'd like to have all my food plots in the ground by now, but there's no rain in the 10-day forecast, so really what's the hurry? So we kind of got a little bit lucky, but I'd also take the rain. So we'll get it burnt off and then resprayed again today, and then hopefully 10-12 days from now we'll be able to come in and seed this little plot. But we're gonna get to work here. We got our work cut out. It's pretty nasty, but we'll see how this goes.
All right, well, we just finished things up here on the permission farm. Got a long list of things done today. First, we finished up setting out the cutting link system, and then we came here and burned this plot off. As you can see, it didn't really burn very well. There's still a lot of thick stem and briar in there. So what we did, we came in here and topped it off with some 2,4-D and some Roundup. And our plan moving forward is just to come in here and put in a fall mix. Actually, right behind my right shoulder here is where we've been getting Eddie and a bunch of other mature deer. Hopefully those deer stick around, and hopefully some new bucks start showing up like that flyer buck and Davy Jones. So everybody's putting the finishing touches on our property, and opening day will be here before we know it. So we appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you right back here next week.